Okay, we are recording. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are really excited about talking about the 4 color personalities of MLM for MLM. And it's kind of just like a fun little shortcut to learning about people. And so this isn't meant to be, the author even says, it's not meant to be like the gospel. Like, we're not going to say like, if you're yellow, you're all yellow. Like, you will find, if you haven't taken the test yet, that you will be a combination of things. For me, my yellow beat out my blue by 1 point. So, and I would say that I don't fit yellow entirely, but I'm going to still talk about it because it is a huge part of my personality. And so my red and green, in the past, green has been my last one, but this recent time that I took it, green was higher than my red. So it just depends on kind of where you are in life. So that's kind of nice. You can just be a little bit of everything. So our goal for this time is just to really share with you a quick little like snippet. This is just kind of gives you an idea of like maybe who you are, or maybe you'll think of people in your life like, ooh, they're definitely a yellow personality, or they're definitely a blue, or they're definitely a red or a green. And so we're going to talk about that because we kind of are more dominant in those areas. Although Sarah and I, we're both pretty yellow-ish blue. And so we'll just talk about that. And then the next week, like I said, we'll talk more about like, how do you actually utilize this when talking to people? So I'm going to get us started and talk about yellow. So basically, if you are a yellow personality, that means like you just love helping people. That's plain and simple. Like Rebecca, I remember I think it was maybe a group chat or something. And she was like, I just want people to know I want to help them. Like, and I'm like, that she is yellow, like through and through. If your profession is all about helping other people, you're a teacher, you're a speech therapist, you're a social worker, and a lot of those ways, you're just wanting to help people. That I feel like that's a big sign that like, yes, you're definitely a big part of your personality is yellow. I was telling Michelle, Amber Volbada, who's one of our Diamond Uplines, our closest Diamond Upline, she did a call for this whole thing like a while ago. And she's like, okay, yellow is my first color, but if I were to choose a second color, it'd be yellow. Like, she is yellow through and through. And that's exactly how she is, just as a person. He describes yellows as being professional huggers. And so, which is funny. So yeah, he kind of lists a couple different people like pastors, counselors, caregivers, nurses, teachers, massage therapists, social workers. They're all predominantly yellow people because they just love helping. They're only interested in doing something like Plexus for the sole purpose of helping. They could really care less about the compensation plan or winning contests. Or even going to like fun events. That's not as exciting for them, but helping people for sure. Like, Sarah and I were talking to one of her ambassadors recently the other day, and she's like, I just want to like share this with people to help them. Like, and it was kind of funny because Sarah was asking her like these other questions to like kind of get a feel. I could tell, or maybe you. Yeah, like, okay, well, would it be fun to go to these events? She's like, nah. Like, she's like, sure, but like you could tell, like she really just wanted to help others, and so, which is great to know for us, knowing how to kind of help guide anybody who joins our team or our customers or anything like that. They make great leaders, network marketing leaders. A lot of it is because they're people of integrity and they're very honest. They love to help, and that tends to kind of attract people. Their missionary spirit kind of, in a sense, is what kind of attracts people to them. And it helps them to overcome any kind of fear or rejection and help them to stay self-motivated. I think for myself, like I would say that that's a big part of it, because knowing how much the products do help others and people I know and love, that's what keeps me going in those slower, lower times and seasons when maybe my personal business isn't as active as I'd like it to be. that I'm like, you know what, like if I'm feeling discouraged or whatever, like I know these products work because I know that they've helped people. And so that's what keeps me going a lot of times with that. And then usually a lot of times they're the behind the scenes kind of people, which is not me. That's where my blue comes in. I don't mind being like the MC of the coordinator of my MOPS group or anything like that. But they love to help the group function and be the behind the scenes kind of people. They're pretty easy to notice. They're kind of like go with the flow kind of, and pretty laid back. They don't really care about impressing people, especially with the way they look. They're very soft-spoken. They're polite. They just kind of go through life like at a leisurely pace, and just kind of fit in wherever. And it's kind of hard for them to say no when people request things. So they tend to be people pleasers, which I can totally get. Like I'm a recovering people pleaser, very soft-spoken, but that doesn't mean they like to be bossed around. So if you think of Cinderella or a lot of the Disney princesses, they're yellow personalities. He gave a couple examples, like Casper, the friendly ghost, is yellow. Charlie Brown always wanted to be helpful. The Tooth Fairy, fairy godmother, I thought that was funny. And then, yeah, they're very laid back. They don't like to say no, which for me, like I had to take a Bible study or a book study, Lisa TerKeurst's The Best Yes, because I really had to learn what is my best yes, because it was super, super easy. And I still have to check myself before I wreck myself, and making sure that I know when to say no to things. But a lot of times yellows, we don't want to disappoint people. We avoid conflict. It's totally true. But we're also very easy to get along with, and we smile a lot. We're usually the first to help or volunteer for things, and we just want to make sure everyone's happy. So a lot of times we really, really focus on relationships, and we're pretty good at relationships for the most part. We just want to make sure that everyone's doing well and getting along and moving things forward, and that if we're doing like a team building or some kind of team project, we want to make sure everybody's on board. He kind of joked about how, like, if you had 12 yellow personalities in a room trying to decide where to go to lunch, they would all starve. And so, because they just wouldn't know, like, they would just be so super indecisive. So sometimes they can come across as wishy-washy, indecisive. They can't make up their minds. They don't like forcing their opinions on other people. And they want somebody to make a decision, and they'll support it as long as it's reasonable. But they don't necessarily want to be the ones to make the decision sometimes. They definitely make great leaders, and they don't typically like to complain. They also don't want to criticize others and moan about things. They just want to help people. So they want to help find a solution to problems and not complain about it. They're usually really patient and understanding, and people can feel their empathy and love with them. They don't usually have an ego that kind of gets in the way with their relationships with like their downlines or their uplines. And they're just overall really nice people, great listeners, pretty dependable and patient. And they're just great team players because they just love helping. Let's see. Again, like all the compensation plan stuff, they could really care less. They don't really care about beginning on the leaderboard, that kind of stuff, or caring about company sales. Like that's not high priority for them. And then kind of just different things as far as spotting a yellow personality. If you hear these words in their conversations often, then chances are they are pretty yellow. So if they love to help, contribute, assist, feel, nurture, comfort, care, and share, they're yellow. And so I think that's pretty much it. I mean, help is like, I can't tell you how many times he used the word help in this chapter. And so that's pretty much it for yellow. So we just really love helping people. And so I'm going to pass the baton to Sarah, who is our resident blue personality.
I am. And like you said earlier, I mean, I definitely tend to also like, I think when I took it this time, my blue was 60 and my yellow was 56. So, I mean, it's still pretty close, but oh my gosh, as I was listening to it and reading through it, it cracked me up how much I agree with and can understand the blue personality. So basically, blues are fun party. Like that's what they like. They like to go to party. They like to be the center of attention. And I even thought listening to this was fun. I was like laughing through it. I'm going to say earlier as Brady popped his head in to say, not he didn't really even say hi, but I was going over some of the stuff and just like laughing at it. So I can see how the fun personality part of it comes in. Um, they love adventure, travel, new things, and most of all, meeting new people. And so that's a big draw for them to come into MLMs and to come into this area, is that they want to meet as many people as possible, which can get them in trouble because, I mean, I know from my personal experience that I have trouble keeping up with all of the contacts that I make and following up. And that's something that he mentions in there, because I start a conversation and then if I'm trying to spread myself too thin and have too many conversations, I can't really be in it. And they tend to start conversations right away and they give their life story. So they're probably, what he said in the book, and I totally can see this, is that they're the easiest to pick out of the 4 color personalities, because they're the people that when you get on an elevator, they say hello, they start their life story, and they just are chatty, and they don't stop, as you can see from what I'm talking right now. So my part is not going to be 10 minutes. It's going to be 20 minutes or an hour. No, I'm just kidding. But they are natural promoters. So that's also why they're really good for this business, because they sit and they have conversations and they talk about everything and everything about everything. Their biggest struggle, like I said, is keeping on task and following up, because they have trouble with keeping conversation and listening along with that. They struggle with listening because they're thinking 200 miles an hour in all kinds of directions. And it's so funny because like I have been reading this week and listening to it. And then tonight, preparing for this, I sat down with Brady. He was watching TV and talking to me about something with the bathroom. And I'm distracted with Jonesy, my dog, who's sitting next to me, who's had some issues. Then he's been to the doctor, he's been to the vet today. And I put my phone down and I was like, wait, I don't want to do that. And then I'm like, oh, I want to keep going through my Facebook newsfeed. All the while my husband's talking to me and I'm like, I'm not even paying attention to what he's saying. So again, blue personality right here, as you can probably see. So another thing that really stuck out was that they tend to finish people's sentences, paragraphs, and just don't stop to listen. I do that quite often. I catch myself finishing my husband's sentences, or even people's sentences, because I know what they're going to say, and so I just kind of jump into it right immediately. Let's see, what else? They meet lots of good people, but they struggle with following up, which I kind of talked about. They're really good in the situation. So like they talked about in each category, he talked about how to get them to an opportunity meeting, or how to get them to like the opportunity or listen to the opportunity of your MLM or of your market. And a lot of it was that if you tell them to come because there's good people, because there's lots of people, and because it'll be a fun time, and because of all these other reasons, then that will be what draws them in. Let's see what else. I get excited. Can you tell? I'm like, I got to stop and think for a second. They are really good about asking and facilitating questions and answers. So when you have like meetings with blue personalities, they tend to be the ones that are asking questions more often. They pop off and, give their stories as they go along with it. Some examples that they talked about of people who are blue personalities are Bugs Bunny, SpongeBob SquarePants, which I never really watched a lot of SpongeBob SquarePants, so I don't really know about that. But Goofy, because and it was really funny how they talked about him, because they were like, he just lives in the moment. He He doesn't care so much about how goofy he seems or how goofy he acts, but he just lives in the moment. Homer Simpson, Dory, and then they talked about Ernie and Cookie Monster, because that's the thing about the Blues. They just live in the moment. They enjoy the time they have with the people, and they don't spend a lot of time focusing on the future plan or what's happened in the past. They just want to, figure out what's going on right then. Let's see. They do make good leaders because they want to act now. So instead of sitting down and thinking about, like, Eloise talked about how all the 12, they don't go in. If there are 12 yellows in a meeting, they won't make a decision. And the Blues are like, okay, let's just do it and have fun while we're doing it. So they're actually like acting on it, and they bring a lot of people in because they have a lot of contacts, and they do have a lot of people in their area. And then the last thing that I thought was hilarious, that I had to write it down because they talked about it. It said, if you forget what to say to a Blue, just say anything really fast and with excitement. And I was like, you got me there, because half the time they won't be listening, and the other half the time they'll be like, oh, they're excited about it, so I just need to be excited about it. Let's all be excited together. But really, that's pretty much sums up Blues from what I gathered from there and from what I experienced as a Blue personality. So I will pass it along, and yeah.
So we will go next with our resident Red personality, Lauren Kimball.
Hey everyone. So yes, I'm going to represent Red, but I actually just retook the test tonight, and my score for Red is 66, but my score for Yellow is 65. So when I'm reading the Red chapter, and when I share with you what the Red says, I relate to a lot of it, and then a lot of it I'm like, oh, that's awful. No, that's so not me. So let me go ahead and just start with what the Red personality focuses on. So when you meet someone that's a Red, their big focus is money. Like, that's what they stress a lot in this chapter. And if you're looking to prospect someone that you think is a Red, the word money will get their attention. They love money. They also love being the boss and being in charge. They love to get things done, which can be good if you have someone that's a Red, because then you can delegate and they can do, and you can kind of trust them to get done what you've asked them to do. They love competition and recognition, and I definitely relate to that. I see that. I love the race, like focusing on getting things done, but also getting that the recognition from it. I was listening to the video profile for Reds after I took the test, and the guy said that even little things like playing games, like with your kids, you have to take score if you're a Red. And it's just not worth playing a game or doing anything unless you're taking score. It's so important to make sure that there's that element of competition. They are lousy followers. And this really stood out to me as almost like a warning, but it also can be a good thing with MLMs, because they basically say, he says in this book too, that when Reds are lousy followers, it also means that they like to take things on all themselves, do all the work. They will plan everything, execute it within their team, lead their team, take everyone in that direction, and the person above them doesn't have to worry about managing, in a sense, that person, because Reds will take care of it. They'll get it all done, and you don't need to worry about if they're doing their job, so to speak. So that could, because there's that good and then there's that bad. And then he said that Reds don't listen well. And I thought to myself, no, I feel like I'm the best listener ever, which I think is that Yellow personality coming through. And he said the reason why Reds don't listen is because they already know everything. And I related with that, because I thought that's one of my weaknesses, is that I do know everything. Like I make it a point to know things, and that's just part of me growing up. And I actually spoke to my counselor about this, and she said, you're just that strong personality, and the people that have the same personality you do, you really do know a lot. That's just, it comes with your personality. You have trained yourself, you've learned from growing up, and you just store all that knowledge. But then you have to be careful with that because you don't want to run people over with that knowing so much. He shares in this chapter, in each chapter, this banquet analogy, and he talks about how when you go into the room at a banquet, there's a group of people sitting together and they're having a lot of fun and they're excited. And then on the other side of the room, there's just one person by themselves at the table. And he said what each color personality would do when they came into the room, how they would approach that situation. And he said red personalities will go into the room, notice how the placement of the tables are, notice how the music's happening and where the food is, and want to fix everything and change it all to make sure that it's working better. And yet in the other personalities, those people went to the other people depending on their groups. The red really wasn't focused on the people, they're focusing on the room and how is things being run. And I definitely relate to that because I noticed that a lot when I go into rooms, how things are set up, how are the chairs, how is the details. And then I'm going to read from the chapter. So for an example, these are example of a red. So Lucy from Charlie Brown was an example of the red. She always wanted to be the boss and tell Charlie Brown and the others what to do. She's always willing to give her opinion and dispense advice. So Lucy was thoroughly red. He also says that when they like recognition, he says that when a red gets a trophy at a big meeting, they may say, "Thank you for the trophy. I worked hard for this. I deserve this, and you are all losers," which is really, really sad. But I guess it's true if you're like really, really red. I don't think I'd ever want to say you're all losers, but the first part makes sense. But I think that's such an awful way to put it. And he exaggerates. He said that at the beginning of this book. He's going to over-exaggerate what each personality would do. So this is just an over-exaggeration of how a red would behave if they won something. But that's just how he kind of relates to what they're thinking when they win something. When you talk to a red personality, you will notice that the red personalities often think they are yellow. Just ask them their color and they will reply, "Oh, I am yellow. I'm just helping those poor losers by telling them what to do. Those idiots can't even take care of themselves, so I'm reorganizing them so that they can get something done." And I was like, that is so crazy. So I think that would definitely be the sad part of the red personality, the way that they view it. It's that very hierarchy. I'm in charge. I know the right way things should be done, and all of you, everyone else that's not a red, you don't have it together, basically, is what he's saying with how the red sees other people. So it's kind of sad. I almost don't want to tell people I'm a red now after I read that. I'm like, that's so sad. And then he also says that the big thing to get someone on your team, if they're a red personality, is that you basically can say things like, you can say to them, "Here's your chance to fire the boss, be your own boss. You have your own organization, and you could tell them what to do. You could be number one in the state and get the recognition you deserve. Plus, you can finally get a bonus check that recognizes your greatness. Then buy that red Ferrari that you've always wanted, drive back to where you used to work, leave rubber marks up and down the company parking lot, roll down the windows, and wave saying, 'Goodbye, losers.'" So when he said that, that's just basically an example of how to market to a red. So the reds are going to be focused on the recognition, the money, the fame. They're very big into materialistic things. It makes them feel good if they have that materialistic things in their life. So that's a lot of the red's personality. For me personally, when I see a lot of the dominant, yes, I like to take charge, especially if no one else is stepping up. But the yellow in me, if someone else is leading, I'm going to let them go. You can lead, you can take control. If you're doing it better than me, then that's great. But the red in me also is, it's hard for me to see people not making a decision. And so that definitely, I see that red coming into play when Sarah was saying that when you're in the staff room and you're trying to decide where to go for lunch, the red is going to be the one telling you, okay, we're all going to go here for lunch. And afterwards, you're going to make 50 calls to all your prospects. Like they're going to not only tell you what to do, but we're also going to have a next plan to go after that. So that's a little bit about the red. and it was really insightful to read that part of the chapter. But it was also good to read the other parts too, because one of the things that the guy says I took the test today, he basically says that you can be a mixture of a couple different colors too. It doesn't always mean just because you turn out high on one color that's all you and that's your final disposition in life. So that was reassuring, because some of the red I'm a little bit ashamed of. So, but I also see the strengths in it too, and I enjoy leading in those strengths too. So, and next we're going to be covering the green. I don't know if you want me to introduce.
Sure.
And we're going to have Lauren share with us, and I'm excited to hear what she has to say about the green personality.
Okay, there we go. I think Lauren probably has experienced a lot of my green with my million questions about things. But let me kind of start at the beginning with green. So typically green personalities like careers are like the engineers, the computer people, scientists, accountants. And while I am a social worker. That's my next highest would be a yellow. But for me, I notice that my green always pops up. Like, even when I'm working, my logical side will always pop up. Anything anybody says with greens, and I think they describe it a lot in the book, but it's very typical of me that I've already analyzed the pluses and the minuses of everything you've just told me and can figure it all in my head. And so I think they're the type of people to see the plan that you've presented and are like 20 steps ahead going, that is not going to work. This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And this is going to happen. Who shut the door over there? But they like logic. They like facts, data, spreadsheets, kind of the plan needs to be all laid out. But they can be very frustrating in MLMs. They tend to be slower to act because we've got to have the data first. So these are the people that when you're prospecting them, they're going to have a harder time coming to the decision because they have to get all the facts first. They've got to analyze what are the pluses, the minuses, how is it going to work for them? Has it been shown to work for everybody else? So those are the ones that are probably going to ask you for your research studies, backing things up, to see them, to read it for themselves, not just take your word for it. But in the end, the book says, and I tend to agree with this, they're very loyal. So once you get those people, they may take you longer to get, on your team, but then they're going to stick with you because they've already been through in their head whether or not it's going to work or not work. So that's a good thing about them. But they're not big on emotion sometimes, which I have a lot of yellow. So I can be a little on both sides, but they're very black and white. There's one way or there's that way. A little antisocial, and this can be hard in the MLMs too. And I see that in myself a bit. I prefer, so they talk about the banquet. We've gone through the banquet all along. So, the green ones, they're not at the banquet. They'd rather be home sitting on their computer in their own house, just not being there. We'll be there via the internet, because they don't want to be put in the social situations as much. And they joke about them being anti-huggers. So while the yellow are very much the huggers, the green are anti-huggers. Not that we don't, at least speaking for myself, not that we don't like a hug, but we're not the ones to jump out and do it typically, because we probably analyze what are you going to think about that and how it's going to work out. Let's see. So yeah, lots of research, lots of fact checking. They talk about, when you're prospecting them in the book, how you're going to do this whole long presentation like at an opportunity meeting. And they're going to be like, oh, that was really great, really informative. That was a good preliminary. Send me the rest of it later. They're going to want to see more than what you think was just a ton of information later on down the road. The personalities they talked about, let me go back to them because they were kind of funny. Oh, I lost my page. Spock from Star Trek. He's a green personality. Lots of data, lots of facts. And the other one I thought was funny was the Count from Sesame Street. Details, everything's about the details, counting, making sure it's precise. But I think, people that are high in green, you'll see that coming through a lot, is just the precise attention to detail about things. You know, they could be slower to, you know, present that information to others because they don't want to tell them wrong. They've got to have it all right before they go telling it. You know, they're not going to fly by the seat of their pants. And they're also going to ask their upline a ton of questions. But then the bonus to them once they're on your team is they will be the source, the resource of all your questions. And it jokes about, you know, you're going to ask for something from 1982 and they're going to say, which version do you want, revision A or revision B? Because they're going to have that kind of stockpiled somewhere away and reserved in the waiting, just so, you know, you have it when you need it. Let's see. I don't think there's anything else. We're less fun. But no, I mean, it's not that we're less fun, but they just, you know, I think they're so caught up in the details and the facts and the data that, you know, while the blue's mind is spinning on the fun stuff, the green's mind is spinning on the facts and, you know, trying to make that plan for later, you know. So it's funny kind of seeing the progression of all of us through the conversation. You know, and seeing it all come through because, you know, we all have a little bits of both. But like I said, for me, I know that the green always pops through on me, even in my, you know, happy, lovey social work job. I'm always figuring out the plans. So, yeah, that's green.
That's awesome. I love seeing, like you were saying, the progression of personality. I love seeing that come through, like, which is why it's way more fun to do it together. Yeah, and totally. Okay, so Rachel Neagle, if you haven't heard of her, she's one of the diamonds in the company, and she is like the product guru. But I think she was like an English teacher before she like did Plexus. But she, through like her own story, has just had to work on like researching everything because of all of her health issues prior to Plexus. So now she is the go-to person where everyone's like, oh, well, if Rachel Neagle said it, then yeah, because she probably did have like tons of questions when she first started with Becky Page. But now she's the go-to person. Christy Mocker, who's on my team, my level 1, she's a dietitian. And so kind of by nature, she's all green, but yeah, she's our go-to person. Like, oh, well, Christy will know because yeah, she just knows. She knows all that stuff. So that's so funny though. But I love it. Like everybody plays such an important role though, like, and can do well in their own little niche, just like we're all like in the church, like we all play our different parts. So I love that. I love hearing it. I took lots of notes. That was so good. Okay. So that's pretty much it for this first part. Like I said, the next Monday night, we're going to kind of delve a little bit deeper into the different personalities and just kind of go a little bit more into just what prospecting those kind of personalities look like when you're talking with them, maybe why they say no to things, just different, just kind of how you can talk to them more. He kind of viewed this as like a shortcut of figuring out people, because you don't want to like give them a questionnaire of like 20 questions. Okay, fill out these 20 questions for me so I can figure out what personality you are. So this is just more like a guide of like, okay, there's subtle little hints. Like they ask questions all the time. Okay, well, they might be a green person. They want lots of research studies. Okay, they might be a green person. Oh, they love like just hanging out with people all the time. Okay, they're totally blue. Or they don't listen to me. Oh, they're blue. Erin Carey are up. One of the bluest people I've ever encountered in my entire life. I will say. And I say that in as much of a loving way as possible. But I'm guilty of it myself, though. So, like Ellen Ford is very red. I mean, that girl, she is red. And so, like, Lauren, Kimball, I would say, like, you definitely are red yellow. And you're not just a red who thinks they're a yellow. Like, I really was shocked when I heard you were red. And then I'm like, oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But, like, Ellen Ford is very much a red personality. So, and Andrea Mitchell is a blue. So I love. Well,
you have to remember the scenarios are exaggerated so that we understand them.
Yes.
So Lauren, they're not that bad. It's just they had to put it in a way that we would get it. So they had to exaggerate it so that it came out.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, he did say that. Please know, like, this is exaggerated, and don't dwell on, for however many days on the awful parts of your personality. Like, and so don't go in thinking I'm a terrible person, but I think we should just focus on our strengths and go from there. But I'm going to stop the recording, and then